truly move me forward. So I wanted to say that to ask this, like, what has been some of the most challenging and toughest conversations you've had to have with your parents in adulthood? Uh, let me start with Tosh first, and then we'll
Yeah,
go
I
to.
was like, let me raise my hand
I got
because
you. I got you.
the conversation I had with my mama was so healing, but she gave herself to me in a way that allowed us to be vulnerable and transparent with each other and allowed us to hold each other accountable. And this conversation was so good. I DM'd Solange that night because a
Cilantro.
seat at the table was the soundtrack to us merging missed years with each other. Like
Mm.
it having Solange sing in the back where I was like, you used to braid my hair and then I just didn't see you for a really long time. And that kind of really changed, it altered my brain chemistry. Like it really changed me to like suddenly not have you around. And talk to her about how we have different relationships. My sister and I have different relationships with my parents and with my mother, and the things that I expect from her moving forward. And just sort of giving her the critique of how her parenthood has impacted me as her daughter. And how we can change our relationships now that I'm a woman, I'm an adult, how our relationship can change from here on out. And Solange sang all about it. And so it was beautiful.
Love that.
It was
Yeah.
needed, but it was beautiful.
Shout out to Solange.
Shout out to Solange.
Necessary, yes.
Shout out to Solange. Shout out to the elevator. We got the elevator was yo.
Shout out to
the elevator healed us through 3 albums.
Oh,
three albums of healing came from the elevator.
I might even. I love that. I love that. Hall of Fame albums too. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Ade.
I think, well, so I've had some very difficult conversations, but I think that there's more to be had. So even the one that I'm going to reference, I really don't feel like was as hard as what I think we really need to start having. But I'll say this, one for sure was, again, right before I was getting married. And it's really a conversation with my mom because my dad, there's still a lot of work to do in terms of feelings and being honest and like really get into it in a way that, it's just typical of Black men and all of that. But for my mom, I remember having a conversation with her before getting married because there was just so many expectations and so many kind of like rules and stuff with respect, especially in our culture, with respect to like how you're supposed to, as kids, you're supposed to show up, and it's so much control. I got to a point where I literally had to be like, I don't know where all of this comes from, but I need to let you know that your son is getting married, and he's the one who's getting married, and he is the one who's going to create the marriage and the lifestyle and the future that he wants with his future wife, which does not include you. I'm not married to you. You know what I mean? I'm sorry to say, but like starting from this point and moving forward, there is someone who actually is more of a priority than you. And that sounds so like minuscule in the course of this topic about healing and all of that. But one thing that we did not get into in terms of this conversation is the control that parents feel like they need to continue to have in their kids' lives, even into adulthood, in a way where they think that they should be your priority. They're paramount. They're incredibly important. But at the end of the day, yourself, your partner or whatever is more important. So that was that conversation leading up to the wedding, like, hey, yo, she don't need to show you her dress before she purchases it. Like that's not what we doing here.
That's heavy.
That was so courageous of you. There are so many. Well, there are some women who complain about how their fiancés and their husbands don't step up to mom. It's like, well, that's between y'all. I don't get in ladies' business or whatever. So it was so honorable and courageous of you to set that boundary with your new family. And that line in the sand does need to be drawn between the women. And the fact that you did it and just kept it moving.
Well, listen, I mean, the funny thing is that I think part of it is being the youngest child. Like my older sister always said that, like, I wasn't the one. Like I saw stuff that they did with my older sister, and I was like, I'm not, that ain't gonna happen. So I was way more vocal. I had a lot more. I'm the man in terms of the siblings, so I had a little bit more rope when it came to that. But to your point, though, it was very difficult because I could have easily, and it's very common to just be like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna get in the middle of that. Y'all work it out. But at the end of the day, I was like, where am I sleeping tonight? It ain't gonna be with you. So just being real.
Wow.
It's powerful. Tristan, I would love to hear.
Yeah, I think mine actually came, I want to say the last time I was at home, which was a couple of months ago. So my grandmother's going through dementia right now, and she's on hospice. So like me and my mom, we were leaving the hospital, and we were just like, we got home, my other cousins were there, and like they started talking about, my mom was talking about being, you know, growing up under my grandma. My cousin, India's mom, who's on here, was talking about growing up under my aunt, and like how both of their mothers kind of pitted them against each other. And being an only child, I've never been compared. Being an only child, my mother never compared me to anyone, but my grandma often compared me to my cousins. Whether it would be like, this cousin is getting A's. What are you doing in school? This cousin is actually playing on the football team. What are you doing on the football team? And like my grandma's one of my favorite people. But like hearing my mother explain what it was like growing up, being the firstborn child. And my mother's situation is the same as Ade's. My mom is the first one, and my uncle. Hearing my mother explain what it was like being critiqued about everything that she did, everyone that she decided to date, you know, that came by being evaluated by that. My mother's light skin, my grandma's dark skin. Growing up, my mother talking about growing up with that in the household. Then comes me at 22, and she's unmarried, and my mother dealing with like my grandma being mad about that, but then other people in the neighborhood who was younger, who had kids in high school, that my grandma was still like, yeah, but that's different. And it's like, no, it's not. And then like my mom, all my art comes from my mom and my grandfather. My mother can look at a dress and remake it, can draw it, can give you the pattern, can do all that. And hearing her sacrifices to make sure that I get to go, you know, make a short film like this and do all these things and really live out my dreams and not be hindered by having to live in realities. A lot of the healing came from understanding the sacrifices that she made in her own happiness to make sure that I was happy, but also things that she shielded me from when she protected me against, you know, family members that had desires of what I needed to do, what was being put on me that she didn't think was fair to her child to be put on. Like, I remember I came home. This is my 4th year at university. I came home. I had just left the admissions office, and I had found out that we were going. You know, we had a little victory lap year. You know, extracurriculars from Alpha happened. Things happened. So we're doing a little 5th year, and I came home. And at the time, my mother had just had surgery, so she was like she was still out of it. And she was like, "Oh, that's okay, baby. It happens." And then the next day, that medicine wore off. And I remember like my bedroom door flying open. And I'm like, I know you're not doing a 5th year playing around and I'm paying for school. And, you know, like being able to laugh about those moments now. And like, even in that, when she was mad, it was still like you fucked up, but let's fix it and see how we fix it. So being able to go back to those moments to be like, yeah, she's always done her best to protect me, and no matter what it was. So I think the more the context comes, the more that I still see where I was still protected while she was like, for a long time, my mother slept on the couch in our living room so I could have a bedroom to my own in our grandparents' house, you know. And those are things that we don't think about, and we don't really like weigh into like how uncomfortable it is, like years of work, every day you're going to work, and then your ass is on a 3-section couch, you know, a 3-cushion couch. So it's that. So I think like that's the healing that I've gotten, is like I see her more as an adult now that we're able to have adult conversations.
Yeah.
I see her more as a not an adult, but more as a well-rounded person that's lived a lot of times.
Yes.
And even when we talk about relationships, like my mother's dated of the dating my mother might have done, like I've only met 3 men, and they've all been after like a year and a half into a relationship, where I was extremely protected in all of these, you know. And the moment that I was like, nah, if I said no, that nigga was gone. And a lot of single parents are not sacrificing that at all.
Right.
They not at all.